There's something so exciting about giant robots and monsters duking it out in the middle of a city, buildings crumbling like stacked blocks in the hands of an impish 3-year-old. My first exposure to this genre was the Godzilla movies, specifically Godzilla vs. Megalon. I remember the first time I got the sensation of being the author of this same kind of wanton destruction in a small arcade in my hometown. The game was SNK's King of Monsters 2 in 1993. The giant pixelated approximations of Godzilla, King Kong, and Ultraman were the vehicles for exactly what I wanted to do in video games: wreck shit. Later in the Xbox era, we'd get the Godzilla games, which were a lot of fun. As games have gotten even more horsepower in the intervening years, this style of brawler hasn't seen a resurgence, until Override, Mech City Brawl. Let's see if it stacks up to the competition, or flops. Mech City Brawl has an arcade mode, which doubles as a story mode. Each character has their own motivations, but I didn't find much that was compelling. Mainly this is due to static portraits of the characters and no voiced dialogue. It's kind of hard to invest much into their stories, as there isn't a lot of personality bestowed to them. Who cares though? We're here to watch stuff explode. And Overdrive delivers. The combat of Override is an interesting take on the fighting/party game formula. You control one of 14 mechs. Each one has their own strengths and weaknesses. The shoulder buttons control the 4 limbs of the robot: L1 for left punch, R1 for right punch. L2 is a special move, and you guessed it, R2 is for right kick. Triangle blocks, and you can parry your opponent by pressing an attack button while blocking, if they're being a bit too aggressive. The X button is jump, and double tapping it allows you to fly, and O dashes. The player can hold the attack button plus square for a special attack. Each of your regular attacks can be charged for more damage, but this isn't for free. Attacks fill your heat gauge, and you'll have to look out not to overheat. If you do, you're a sitting duck for a few seconds. There are also specials, which are available if your health reaches a certain low percentage. Each character's specials are unique, and they add even more spectacle to the experience. With all that out of the way, how does the combat feel? To me, it feels great. The mechs, while lumbering behemoths in appearance, are agile and fun to manipulate. In one-on-one and free-for-all matches, the combat feels suitably hectic. I only wish that the charge attacks had a bit more oomph when they landed. Overall, this is a fun game that's simple enough to play with a friend on the couch, or go online to ranked for bragging rights. There's also cooperative play, with 2 to 4 players controlling one of the 4 limbs of the mech. This feature is truly a Voltron-inspired dream. I just wish that it was available for online or a versus mode in split screen. Hopefully an update will allow for this, because it would be perfect for a get-together. People screaming, relationships ruined, all in the day's work for a good party game. Override Mech City Brawl had me hesitating when I first saw the mech designs. Initially, the mech Watchbot looked like a poor man's Optimus Prime, and there was something vaguely generic about each of the mechs at a tertiary glance. I'm glad to say that I was wrong. The mechs all look great. I particularly like Metagekon and Stardust. Metagekon looks like a Mechagodzilla clone, and I'm completely fine with that. He's toothsome, scaly, and huge. Stardust, on the other hand, is the internet. It's like the team said, if we had to create a meme mech, what would it look like? Both of these designs exemplify the fun that the artist involved must have had creating these robots. Each mech has its own variation skin. These are simple color swaps. There are accessories to festoon your behemoth with, but I didn't find them all that interesting. Of course, having a Robo-Dragon wearing a sombrero is hilarious. It's just not for me. There are some nice effects while duking it out. I would have liked to see more particle effects and sparks flying to simulate the clash of steel. There are some nice explosions, and overall the atmospheric effects are excellent. The arenas are good looking as well. Being in the middle of a large city and watching the whole thing crumble around you is satisfying. I wish there was a bit more resistance when you doze through a building though. The structures fold like a cheap suit, lessening the sense of impact you're having on the battlefield. Speaking of calamity, the game has a shaky camera effect to help increase the sense of ground-shaking force the robots possess, but I found it nauseating. I turned it off immediately. The color palette is surprisingly bright as well. No dingy cities to lay waste to, only bright, inviting metropolises to spoil here. Lastly, the models look a bit undefined. I wish all the great detail put into them read better on the screen. Some cel-shaded assets or thick black outlines could help the robots appear more distinct, and cut a cleaner silhouette. Override Mech City Brawl is a great looking game, and the audio holds up as well. The sound design is excellent. The 3D sound helps the player place where enemies are on the battlefield. This is especially helpful when you're in a 4-way brawl. The shattering of buildings is crunchy, and the explosions have a lot of bass. The clash and clank of steel isn't all that pronounced in the mix. Weapons also lack a texture that should be expected, especially when many of these sounds have been perfected in other giant robot TV series, movies, and games. music has lots of lead guitar and backing stringed instruments. While I can see where the composer is going, it falls short of the source material that serves as inspiration. There's also only a handful of songs, and the soundtrack doesn't embrace the cheesy 80s theme song motif that could have provided perfect context for the visuals. Per exemple. Something heavier like Transformers Devastation's OST would have been preferable. There is no voice acting, so on to verdict. Override Mech City Brawl is currently being sold for about $30 for the PS4, which is the version I played. The value for the price is going to depend on the customer. I'm biased, as I love the kitschy aesthetic, and this game is literally all I ever wanted to play as a child. The game comes with the first season DLC included without needing a code. Additionally, Override doesn't overload the player with microtransactions. Override would be a great party game, and here's hoping the forthcoming updates can make the game even more fun for friends to play together. The online works well, but matches can take a while to get into. I'll definitely check back in on Override as more characters are added, and hopefully implementation of its excellent multiplayer concepts become more integrated with the game's on and offline modes. Override feels like something from a previous era of gaming, more innocent and more ambitious. It's nice to see that the developers have a reverence for giant robots as much as I do, and many of the specials are direct nods to some of the greats of the genre. If you ever played with your toys on the living room rug, making your Megazord duel Godzilla atop a Lego city you created just to crumble beneath their feet, Override Mech City Brawl is for you. That's it for week 2 of March Mecha Madness. Check back next week for another breed of mechanized combat with the review of Astabreed. This is Zach with Tanuki Games. Thank you for watching my video. Please remember that a like, a comment, or subscribe means a lot to me and, of course, the channel. Enjoy.